All right. We'll jump to a basketball primer ish, if
Yeah,
you want to call
yeah.
it that. March, to get you ready for March. For those who've been on the football beat or taking a vacation from sports or anything like that, who are getting ready to fill out their brackets, and like, all right, it's almost conference tournament time, almost NCAA tournament time. I got to
Yeah.
start watching some basketball podcasts or listening to basketball podcasts to figure out who's good and who's not. We will cover the state of Texas here. For those who
Yep.
don't know, that's what we do. We cover the state of Texas in depth, from all 26 teams in there, all the way from Houston down to UTRGV, all of them. We talked about all of them on here. We've covered all of them on here, preseason, during the season, so on. So you sent me a list of topics that we can hit on, like
hmm
bullet points, and I think they're great. So I'll throw it to you and let you kind of lead
Yeah.
us through this, and we can talk about it.
Yeah. So as we know, not everybody's like us and pays attention to college basketball year round. And so as with March approaching, we figured why not have something for everybody who is jumping in now for the first time. So one of the things I want to talk about are kind of get everybody up to speed on how the brand names are doing, because everybody realizes who the brand names are in both men's and women's basketball. The top three teams overall, Cinderella stories, overlooked stories, biggest disappointment, and then the most exciting player to see in March. So we'll start with kind of catch everybody up to speed. This is what I like to call the Captain America pull up a seat. So you
You
did
want to
this.
start on the men? You want to start on the men's side or the women's
Yeah,
side?
start on the men's side. So let's start on how are the top three, how are the top five teams in Texas doing? And I mean top five brands in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the men's team, for the men's side, I had, and you can disagree with me, but this is my list. So I had Baylor, Houston, Texas, A&M, and Texas Tech, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the women's, we'll get to the women's, but for the women's, I had Baylor, Texas, and A&M, and then kind of a question mark after
Baylor,
that.
Texas A&M. Yeah. Yeah. Nobody else has like a pedigree. Like, we're talking pedigree of this
Right,
century being
right, right,
good at basketball.
right. So we'll get to that in a bit. But anyway, the top five for brands. We just talked about Houston and Tech. Guess what? They're both spoilers, probably the two best teams on the men's side in Texas. A&M in that discussion, I can say,
Yes.
not the prettiest team to watch. In that discussion, though, if you want a throwback to 90s basketball of a lot of missed mid-range shots and physical play, you'll like watching A&M.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
A&M.
Anything to add on A&M?
I was gonna pitch in on A&M. Definitely 306 in the country in effective field goal percentage, number one in
Yeah,
offense rebound percentage. They are what they've been. If you watch them in years past at all, they throw the
yeah,
ball at the basket and they go get it. Now, the
yes,
difference with this year's A&M team, real quick, is they added Zurich Phelps and Pharrell Payne,
Mhm.
two high level transfers here to help them with the scoring.
Yes,
And, like I said, even though it's not efficient, they are better offensively, I think, in terms of
yes,
these high leverage games. And then defensively, they're also better. Last year, they were 60. Wow, that's crazy. They were that low. 68th in the country in defense. The year before that, they were
yeah.
44th in the country in defense. This year, they're 6th.
Mhm.
So they are a much better team. I think this is Buzz Williams' best team by a large margin.
100%, 100%. We'll talk more about Tech and Houston when we get to the best team, the top three teams, because I think there's more to
Okay, yeah.
talk about there. Baylor and Texas. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with either? Who do you want to start with?
Texas, for those not, I'm approaching this as if like people kind of
Yep,
know
have
about
not paid
them, but
attention.
not
Yeah,
not completely locked in. Rodney Terry's seat is very hot right now. Texas has completely not underwhelmed because it's really tough in the SEC, but Texas is just not good enough top to bottom. They rely a lot on
Mm,
Trey Johnson, and with that being the case, he's a true freshman. He's going to be a lottery pick. He's awesome.
yep, yeah, he's
They
gonna. I
don't have
mean,
much else.
they don't have much else. I think we were afraid that they wouldn't have much else heading into the season, and they kind of proved that to be true. Right now, I mean, I'm trying to think. Outside of Cooper Flag and the two Rutgers players, he might be in the conversation for like top five in the NBA.
Yeah,
Top five pick. And
VJ will be higher than him.
VJ will be higher. Yeah, yeah. There's a little bit higher
but
ceiling, I guess, with VJ.
yeah,
But as far as like ready-made players, like it's him and Cooper, in my opinion. But like ready-made, obviously Cooper's ceiling's better, but like ready-made can come in and be a 15+ point per game
Yes.
scorer. I think Trey Johnson's right up there with him. So if you want to watch somebody that's going to be playing in the NBA for, I don't know, the Pelicans or the Hornets or whatever, like watch him. Like you're going to see a lot of tape. It's going to be really fun to watch him. And they'll beat some teams that they shouldn't just because he's that good.
Yeah.
Baylor, we talked about VJ Edgecombe. This may be a spoiler. Baylor may be considered one of the more disappointing teams in the state this season.
Yes.
This was supposed to be a year where Baylor returned, at least in my eyes, Baylor returned to where Scott Drew was when they were winning the national title or like being one of the top 3 teams in the country. They broke the bank and brought in Jeremy Roach. They retained Scott Drew after fending off Kentucky. They had, I think, enough, or at least what I thought was enough coming back, and then enough coming in terms of VJ Edgecombe and Robert Wright as freshmen. And I was like, okay, this is a team that has a balance of everything. You have the experience, you have the returning players, you have the coach. I think I'm very curious to see how much Scott Drew this offseason admits losing a lot of his bench, and I mean his coaching bench, affected this season. Because, as we know, John Jacobs went to co-coach at FAU, and Alvin Brooks III went to go to the bench on Kentucky, where Scott Drew ended up turning down. I wonder how much that continuity played in how Baylor's success over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Scott Drew is a fraud and oh my God, he's getting exposed, but like having those guys there, I think FAU has proven to be pretty good, and I think Jacobs was a really good hire. And now I'm like, okay, maybe it's just a year hiccup that I didn't account for at all, really.
Yeah. Also, Norshad Omier, throw him in that transfer. Him and Jeremy Roach at the transfer.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, good point.
That's why we thought, this was going to be a very talented offensive team, and the defense would be a question. We hoped, we knew coming into the year the center spot was going to be shaky. Josh Ojenwuna was really the only one back that could play center even, and now he's hurt. So they don't have a ton of options there. They're 13th in the country on offense, 65th in defense, 30th overall, which is not bad by any means, but they're 8-8 in conference now, and they just lost to Colorado 3 nights ago. So it's not great. I think they're down to like a 9 seed in a lot of bracket projections right now.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. All right. We can move on to top. You want to go men's, women's, each one, or do all of them for one?
No, let's just roll through the men's and then roll through the women's.
Okay. Yeah. So let's go through top 3 teams. We mentioned Tech. At least for me, I think it's Tech, Houston, Tech, and A&M, at least for me.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yes.
Okay. So we talked a lot about A&M. Let's talk a little bit about Houston and Tech. Houston first. This is not Kelvin Sampson's best Houston team, right? I think that was last year. But I'm very surprised at how much he's been able to mitigate the loss of one of the best players in program history, Jamal Shead. This team doesn't have the punch defensively that it did, obviously, but I think that the strides they've taken offensively, and maybe that's guys like Emmanuel Sharp coming into their own a little bit more. Maybe that's LJ Cryer, maybe being more confident on the ball than he was a year ago. Or maybe that's Juwan Roberts being more assertive in the post more. They haven't fallen off. I don't want to say fallen off because I expected them to. They haven't taken a back step is what I expected with losing Jamal Shead. And that's been the most surprising thing for me, because this is still a Houston team that has the defensive punch, but with maybe a little bit more outside threat from shooting, which I think is kind of terrifying if I'm an opposing team.
Yeah, Milos Uzan is shooting 43% from 3 this year.
And look, I love Jamal Shead. He ain't shooting 40.
No, he shot 31. He shot 31% last year. Jamal Shead.
Yeah.
Like that alone is a huge upgrade for them. They're 3rd in the country in 3-point percentage at 40.2%. Like you said, still great defensively, 3rd in the country defensive rating on KenPom, but they're up to 7th on offensive rating here. Still play very slow, but now 24-4 overall, 16-1 in conference play. Since the loss to San Diego State, they started the year 4-3. They've won 20 out of 21 since then. It's one of the best teams in the country. If they continue to win, They'll be a 1 seed. I think they're going to find a way to put them in a 1 seed if they win the regular season and the conference tournament. But yeah, this is an awesome team that people should be picking to go very, very far in their brackets. I don't care who.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't care who's in their region either. Like, I don't think there's a bad 7 seed draw. I don't think there's a bad 8 seed draw or something like that, depending on where they sit. Like, I don't have bracketology in front of me, but like, I
Yeah.
don't care who the 7 seed is. The 30th best team in the country, 25th best team in the country, Houston's going to run them over.
Yeah. If you're looking at if you're trying to project ahead to March, if you want to pick the team with the highest floor,
Yeah,
I think it's clearly Houston. Clearly Houston.
100%.
All right, now talk about Tech a little bit. Tech is a team second year to Grant McCasland. Of course, if you don't remember, Grant McCasland, former head coach at North Texas, really successful tenure there. Won a tournament game, beat Purdue, won the NITs last year, and last year under his first year at Tech, was kind of an interesting mixed bag of like him working with pieces that didn't fit what he wanted to do. Probably didn't want to be there a lot of the time, as we kind of saw a lot of them just leave immediately after, and weren't playing his style of ball. Right? They were offensive oriented. There were a lot of freelance on that side of the ball. He kind of just basically, in the most coach speak way possible, he basically said like, "Yeah, we weren't trying to defend last year. Like he's like we didn't have any defenders, so we weren't really trying to play that style." This year, they went and splashed some cash, got somebody like JT Toppin, who, again, Power 5 programs and blue bloods were in line for this kid, formerly of Faith family, Dallas Faith family, who went to New Mexico. And they brought him to Tech, and he's been nothing short of a superstar for them. And he's in line. I think he's probably one of 3 or 4 players in line for a Big 12 Player of the Year.
He should win Player of the Year.
I'm worried they're just going to give it to Hunter Dickinson.
If they give it to Hunter Dickinson, I will burn that place down. I don't know where it is, but
I think he should. He's been fantastic. He's been absolutely stellar.
Yes.
But anyway, but looking, now they're playing the brand of basketball that Grant McCasland is used to playing, or at least maybe wanted to play, but maybe had to dial back a little bit at North Texas because of the caliber of athlete he can get now at Texas Tech. On paper, you want to look at top to bottom, my favorite roster of men's or women's. Like, I think I'd said at the beginning of the year, every one of these players fit into a role. And I think that that's something that was deliberate. I think that's something that's shown on the floor. Elijah Hawkins is like the best pure point guard in the state. Chance McMillan's one of the best off guards. Darian Williams complements JT Toppin perfect. Like, I think this is a perfect construction of an on paper roster that I've had. And if you want to talk about a team with the highest ceiling, maybe, let's just say this: if you want to impress your friends in the bracket, be high on Texas Tech. That's all I'll say.
I agree. I don't think I have to add too much to that. I think you covered it well, so we can keep it moving.
Yep.
On to what's next.
All right, we got Cinderella story. Let's combine these: Cinderella and Overlooked. So I'll do Cinderella as in a team that maybe not everybody's talking about right now that could be talked about in March, whether it's post-conference championship, post whatever. Who do you have for this? And then we'll get to Overlooked story, which is just in general. This doesn't have to be a March thing, but just could be in general, top to bottom, a story nobody's really talking about.
Yeah, I have 3 teams here for Cinderellas in terms of teams that could potentially win their conference tournament that are being kind of overlooked. The first 2 are from the Southland, and they're very, very good teams. But with McNeese, it would feel like a Cinderella run if you win it. Lamar and A&M Corpus Christi are very, very, very good teams right now. Lamar, I believe, is second in the conference. A&M Corpus Christi has pushed McNeese on multiple occasions, especially in Corpus Christi, and kind of shown that they can go punch for punch with them. So I would love to see them on a neutral site be able to play. Lamar is up to 13-5 in conference, Corpus Christi 10-8. Both teams that, if McNeese is to lose, Will Wade and McNeese, if they were to lose, I would take one of them to potentially make a run at it. And the other one I have, who's not looking as good anymore, is UTEP. They've now lost 3 straight, unfortunately, but those are to 3 of the best teams in the conference. So we'll see. They're 7-7. If they can end strong and get a decent seed in the Conference USA tournament, which Conference USA is really, really strong this year,
Yeah.
It's the number 9 conference in the country on KenPom. So it's probably a more of a long shot, but
Mhm.
I do look at this as being kind of an open field here, even though Liberty and Middle are good teams. UTEP is not far off. I wouldn't be shocked if they made a run.
Yeah. I agree with UTEP. UTEP was one of mine as well. I think that if it gets down to the tournament, we saw it last year, right? They were a game away from the tournament. I do think this is a better team who's maybe disappointed a little bit this year towards the latter half of the season. But I do think that Joe Golding's defensive style, kind of, I mean, not really defensive. They've not been that great defensively this
Yeah,
year.
they've flipped this year. That's the whole thing
They've
is
kind of been flipped. Yeah.
they flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
So I'll
throwing the
still have
ball.
them up there just because, yeah, they're actually pretty decent offensively and kind of have an outside shooting threat. So I'll say that one. And then you mentioned Lamar. Lamar has been defensively incredible this year. I think they've been one of the best in the Southland. And I think that Alvin Brooks I think I mentioned this before. If you want to talk about one of the most ground up rebuilds in the country, not even
Yeah.
in the state, in the country, you can look at Lamar basketball. So Alvin Brooks, he's an older coach, so I don't know if he'll have another job in him or whatever, or this may just be his one stop and he may try to build Lamar into a mid-major power. Regardless, I think if you're talking about Lamar and all of a sudden you look up and they're in the tournament, don't be shocked.
Yeah.
All right, overlooked. I have Actually, I don't know.
I
I don't know if
I have 2.
I have one. I just have one. Mine's SMU. Like I
Okay.
think nationally for me, SMU. I don't think there's enough talked about how easily they've walked in the ACC, and this is exactly what they hired Andy Enfield to do. This is where my hesitancy on them getting rid of Rob Lanier early, right? I don't think I think it was a good move in retrospect, but at the time, I'm like, what do you expect in your first year, right? Like, or what do you expect in the first year in the ACC? Do you expect Andy Enfield to go in and make you a top 14? The answer was yes. Like the answer was exactly what he's done. He's made them competitive. He has them in a lot of recruiting battles. They're gonna get better, and this is a tournament team, like just flat out. So that was something I did not expect from SMU in year one.
Yeah, they need to continue to end the year strong. If they make the tournament in year 1, it'll be a massive, massive win. And I
Yep.
do think they have a good shot at it right now. They just need to keep winning games and close it
Mm-hmm.
out down the stretch, which they've been doing. The 2 teams I have overlooked, as overlooked so far, Texas Southern, I still have in here. They are. I
Mm-hmm.
watched them play Southern and they lost to Southern, but I just left that game saying this is a really well coached team, obviously, as we know, with Johnny Jones, that
Mm-hmm.
will once again, if you want to throw them in the Cinderella category, I guess you can. But once again, they're
Yeah.
going to be right there to win the conference championship in a couple weeks when we play the tournament. And so they're 10-5 in conference right now. This is a very, very good team. Johnny Jones has once again built on their defense. They are the number 1 defense in the SWAC, number 7 offense. So the offense isn't great, but the defense is tremendous. So
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Jones has done it again there. And then the other one is North Texas. And while we knew how
Yeah.
good we've talked about how good they are this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to say like we haven't talked about them, but I'm not sure we've talked about them enough
Mm-hmm.
in the scope that they are now 11-3 in the American. Honestly, the way that things finish out, like they very well could be like 15-3 in a couple
Yeah.
weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And this is with an entirely new roster. Floyd Wright, Newell, Lorient, Massey, like an entirely new roster here. And Ross Hodge has them playing at a super, super high level, 62 in the country in KenPom, 20-6 overall, top 30 defense in the country. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, good Lord. I'm number 2 in offense and defense in the American right now. So, yeah, this is an incredible, incredible team this year.
All right, let's go with moving on to biggest disappointment so far for men's basketball. I mean, do we both have the same one?
I have them, but then I have 2 other ones if you want to we could
Okay,
throw
so
out there, but we could talk
I'll go
about
with yeah, we can go with Baylor. I'll name Baylor because they are 30th in Ken Palm right now. What are they in the Big 12 right now? I mean, now one,
that's
two,
their
three,
lowest
four,
mark since
five, six,
2019
seven.
for those wondering.
Yeah, seventh in the Big 12 right now. They're tied with TCU, who is a very much an openly rebuilding team, only one game above West Virginia, Kansas State, and Utah. Um, Look, this is a team flat out that I had as the second best team in Texas heading into the year, right? Like just flat out. I thought this would be a 3 to 4 team race in the Big 12. It kind of is not. I mean, not really after last night with Houston, but Baylor was never in that race. Let's just put it that way. Defensively, they just have not been enough. In the inside the post, we were already kind of projecting a little bit with like hoping that Josh Ojibwana would be that guy. He's not. And Norshad Ormir, like he's been good, but like I think we needed him to be more. Jalen Celestine, again, when you're already a small, undersized team, you need those small, undersized guys to kind of take a leap forward. They just didn't get it done. Jeremy Roach, I think, has probably been the most disappointing player in the state for me.
For
He's been nothing but fine. Like he hasn't been the guy that we expected to see coming in from a team like Duke last year. And they've relied on a freshman, which we expected them to do, but not in the capacity that they needed, that they have at times with VJ Edgecombe. Like a lot of times this year, it's just been VJ, please, like hit it,
And
get us
Rob.
going. And
And
right, and
Rob.
then as the season's gone along, it's been clear that Jeremy Roach should not be the point guard. Like Rob Wright should be the point guard. And recently or not recently, but like in the second half of the season, they've just said, yeah, sure, Rob, you're the point guard, Jeremy, you're the off guard, and make it work. So it's like, okay, like I don't know. They've been like a middle of the pack Big 12 team, which is severe underperformance for me.
Yeah, going into the season, I have our preseason predictions still on the
Oh
doc
God.
that I
Okay. What
have.
do we got? What do we
I
got?
went I went 14-6, which is even higher.
Oh,
No. You went 14-6. I went 13-7. Thank you. Okay.
uh, all right, all right. 14
Um,
to put it this way, Tech and Iowa State are projected to go 14-6 through Camp Bomb right now.
yeah,
So those are the third and fourth best teams right now. Baylor is 8-8, so nowhere close.
no. I did have going to another team we were kind of
Yep.
really high on here was UT Arlington. I think
Oh
UT
man,
Arlington is
yeah,
in this conversation. We both had them at 10-6 going into the year, and probably a lot of that was off of how good the 24 season ended, right? KT
sure,
Turner's first
sure.
year. They end up going 20-14. They make a run in the WAC tournament to play Grand Canyon, end up losing there, but they were a really promising team and they end up
Mm-hmm.
losing just a ton of talent from the transfer portal. And I thought they
Yeah.
had replaced it enough. I like Lance Ware, who's a good player for them, but
Mm-hmm.
it just ultimately has not been enough. They're 6-7 in the in conference play and 13-14 overall, just not quite where they wanted to be or where we expected them to be this
Mm-hmm.
year. So I'll throw UTA in there, and then I don't know. Let me see what we had them going into the year. We had Texas State at 9-9 going into the season, and I don't think it's like they're all up there on disappointing scale.
Yeah.
But they're 8-8, so they're right there. They're about on par. But I just did want to think about like, did I think maybe Caden Gums, Tyrell Morgan? I know you were
Mm-hmm.
kind of lower on them coming into the year, so maybe not
Yeah.
on your list. But I was hoping Texas State could maybe flip a switch a little bit and make a little run in this thing, but they haven't. So
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's go to most exciting player to see in March. Does it have to be the best player? Because I think we already mentioned JT Toppin a couple times. Most
mhm.
exciting player that you can see people falling in love with in March. I have mine. I mentioned him already today. I think it's Christian Anderson. I
Okay.
think that if Tech is to make a run, Christian Anderson's going to have quite a few show out games alongside JT Toppin. But I think people are already talking about JT Toppin. Um, and not everybody's going to find something like JT Toppin exciting, right? I do because I appreciate defense and kind of what he does on the inside. But like I can see a casual fan not being exactly wooed by that two-sided game.
Yeah.
Christian Anderson is somebody who you can just turn on and if he puts on a highlight show, everybody's going to be like, oh, who's that guy?
Yeah.
And I mentioned it before. He's the only guy on that roster that can play make, that can score at most of all three levels, can create contact. I think that if Tech makes a run to an Elite Eight, I think he has to be somebody who goes off. So I'm going Christian Anderson to watch out for. He's been just so much fun to watch in Tech's best performances.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick. I'll go with the Baylor freshman here. I'll stick with VJ
Mm,
Edgecombe.
that's a good one.
Just if they make a if they win a couple games, if they win a game in March and then they
Yeah.
play a 1 seed, or if they play a 2 seed or something like that, like it will be Edgecombe who will keep them in games. And he has gotten better as the years gone on, like
Yes.
substantially. The 3-point shooting is on another level. I think the ball
Yep.
handling and like creation is on another level right now. And then you still have the athleticism, the defense, and everything like that that makes him top 5 pick. Like he is someone that people are going to be seeing for the first time, and I'm just hoping Baylor can win one game at least in the tournament to let them see 2 games of this guy, because this kid is really, really awesome. But I could also see like Rob Wright going off for 20 points in a game too. So,
That's a good one. VJ has
um,
come since Big 12 play started 16.7 points per game, 3.5 assists, almost 5 rebounds on 46% shooting and 38 from three.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's awesome.
And for again, I've mentioned this before on the show, but again, if you're listening for the first time, this is the guy who played alongside Buddy Hield, Eric Gordon, and DeAndre Ayton for the Bahamas, and he was the leading scorer on that team over the summer. So yeah,
Yeah.
this guy has that dog in him.
Yeah.
If you ever have a player who did. All right, let's jump over to the women's side now. Top 5 teams brand wise. I guess I can limit it to top 3 because we'll just get to that. Texas, Baylor, and A&M. How are they doing? Let's look at Texas. Texas is the number 1 team in the country right now.
Yeah.
Like they've looked like at times they've looked like the best team in the country. At worst, they've looked like a top 5 team. Like I don't think they fall into where you say, "Ooh, this is not what we think it is." Um, we'll talk about their style of play when it comes to the best teams, but as far as resume, they have the best right now. Like clearly, they're the number 1 team in the country for a reason. Notre Dame lost this weekend, so the only team that beat them, or one of the only teams that beat them, lost. So there you go.
Yeah. Texas, like you said, I think. Do you want to talk about them more in depth on the top 3 teams one, or do you want just like?
Yeah, we can talk about their style of play
Okay, yeah.
in the top teams.
Yeah. Like you said, number 1 team in the country. I've seen them play. I watched them play LSU in person a couple weeks ago. They're
Mhm.
extremely physical. Vic Schaefer, Rory Harmon at point guard still. Madison Booker at the off guard spot shoots a lot. So you have the pieces that are familiar to fans, I think, going
Mhm.
into March. But ultimately, this style and this success that they're having is something that Texas hasn't had a ton of in the past decade plus. So it's been very refreshing to see.
Yep. All right. A&M, or let's go Baylor. Let's go. Actually, no. Yeah, no, we'll go Baylor because I don't want
Okay.
to make fun of A&M too
All right.
bad. Baylor. We talked about them, at the top of the pod, right? This is a team that at times maybe looked like a little bit of a disappointing / plateau of a team, but I think it's rounded into shape. Their game against TCU is going to Gonna I hate to say like that's going to hold a lot of my opinion, but like the top side of this team, I think it will hold a lot of my opinion. If this team gets beat again by TCU or maybe gets drubbed by TCU at home, I think that does hinder my opinion on what this team could be going into March. But right now, I'm very much still optimistic about where this team's headed. They added the right pieces with Aaron Von Lay and Aaliyah Mathar, who's finally starting to come into her own again. So yeah, this is still clearly the second best team to me.
Yeah. We had Nikki Collin on before the season. Always a great interview with her. One of the smartest coaches in Texas, one of the smartest
Yeah.
coaches in college basketball. She's done it again. We knew her pedigree when she came to Baylor. And, since Mulkey left, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we've been kind of waiting on this season. We've been waiting on this year to kind of break through. And honestly, coming into the year, it was like, if she doesn't have a top 20 team this year, like, what are we doing?
Yep.
Like, what's the standard of Baylor basketball? And she's accomplished and then some in terms of what she's done this season. So very, very happy for her and this team. And it's like similar to Texas, it's a lot of familiar faces: Sarah Andrews, Little Paige Bugs, Bella Fauntleroy. You go down the list of returning faces for Baylor.
Yep. All right, and let's talk about A&M. We
Same
don't have to
A&M
spend
program that has won championships in this century.
we don't have to spend a lot of time talking
Gary
about
Blair
A&M.
is not here anymore. For
Gary
those
Blair's not
checking
here
in for the
anymore.
first time, this year, Gary Blair is not the coach. He hasn't been the coach
Yeah.
in a long, long time. What, about 3 seasons?
Um.
2 seasons?
Oh God, where do you want to start with it? This team stinks.
It's very
this
bad.
team's this
Their
team's
best
a very
player their best player is like the 5th option at UCLA. Their best player from last year is like the 5th option at UCLA this
bad.
year.
Oh,
They didn't
unnecessary
replace
eyeball for
her.
shots.
They really didn't attack the portal well at all. Starter Janae
They've recruited like high school fine, but like this is the portal era. You need immediate talent now.
especially when you lose the player, Barker and so on that they've lost
Yeah,
last
yeah.
year. They have some freshmen in there that are decent, but
My favorite
ult-
part was they brought in India Rogers last year from Oregon, and then she graduates, and they were like, ah,
no, no,
they just shrugged. It was
oh
like
no,
she did everything for that team last year, and they were like, I don't know what to do now.
yeah. The
We're
only
not going to go get another point guard or anything.
Yeah, the only returning, starter or good starter
Uh,
that they had from last year is Aisha Coulibaly, who's a good
she's hurt
player,
now.
but she's
She's hurt
hurt.
now.
And I was at the game where she got hurt against LSU. It was not
Yeah,
good, and so wishing her a recovery. I don't even know the full extent of the injury, but
yeah,
regardless, it's was not a good team with her. It's a worse team without her. I believe they have 3 wins in conference. I think they've lost 9 straight at this point. So
yeah.
really, really tough year for Joni Taylor, and now I think next year goes into a hot seat year for her, to be blunt.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we'll see. I mean, we'll see if she lasts the offseason. All right. So moving on to the top three teams now. We mentioned Texas. I mean, that's clear to me. Number one team in the country. They're not the prettiest team to watch, but I think what I
Oh,
do
no.
love to watch about Texas is how they can impose their style of play on anybody. Vic Schaefer, for those that don't know, Vic Schaefer, Kim Mulkey, and Don Staley are kind of like three different versions of the same archetype of coach, right? They value
Mhm.
physicality, they value interior presence to a certain extent, and all three are willing to not sacrifice the outside, but like not focus on the outside part of the game. And at the top level, you can get away with that. And I think Vic Schaefer, this year at least, has been the one to kind of win out on those battles of imposing physicality. Madison Booker's a superstar. She can kind of she's a two-level scorer, mid-range, inside, playmaking, big guard, right? She's absolute superstar. When Rory Harmon can reduce to a second player in that, I think you then up her value because all of a sudden she can just focus on defense and she can just hound players and pick her spots on offense. And then you just have this conveyor belt of forwards that you can just roll out for 10, 15 minutes at a time and just beat any teams inside. Outside of like Lauren Betts, who hasn't been healthy, I don't know if there's a front court in the country right now that can face Texas for an entire
No,
game.
no. Yeah, you mentioned Taylor Jones, Kyla Oldecker, have been really good. They haven't even had Aaliyah Moore, who is a very,
I was
very,
about to
very
say,
good player for
yep.
them. We'll see when she returns. But yeah, they had her. Like you said, it's not an aesthetically pleasing style of basketball. They are 362 in the country in 3-point attempt rate. I believe that's out of 363. So someone, second to last. But then they
Yeah.
also don't
By
let
the way,
other.
I did see Danny Davis. I was looking up something on Leah Moore. I did see Danny Davis said Vic said last week she may be done for the year, but nothing definitive has been
Ah,
announced. So
damn.
unfortunate,
Um,
but the fact they've been able to keep things rolling without her is
yeah.
massive.
Yeah. So not only do they not shoot threes, they don't let you shoot threes. They're 4th in the country in 3-point attempt rate defense. So nobody's
Yeah.
shooting threes when they play
I was
basketball.
about to say nobody's playing basketball after the year 2015 against Texas.
Correct. So you will see a lot of half court stuff, a lot of great defense. They are just absolutely swarming. They're able to deny on the wings really effectively and really force the point guard of the other team into some tough situations. So uh, I said it 2 weeks ago. I was like, why is this not the best team in the country? And the 2 weeks since then, they've just kept beating everybody, and now they are the
Mm-hmm.
best team in the country. But I will say this doesn't feel like it's not an inevitable team. It's not a team that you're
Yeah.
like, oh, there's
Right.
pencil them in for the championship game no matter what. Like, I don't care who
Right.
they play. It will be interesting to see them win 6 straight games, in a tournament format. And that's the case for any of these top teams this year. It's going to be a very open season, and it wouldn't surprise me if there were a couple upsets here in the Sweet 16 or Elite 8, not just for Texas, but just across the across the board. So it's very interesting to see their style.
Yep. All right. The second and third best teams, look, they're going to play each other probably soon, TCU
Yes,
and Baylor.
Sunday.
So yeah, so we'll talk. So we talked a little bit about Baylor. Let's talk about TCU. You want to talk about the complete opposite of Texas? A team that loves the three, a team that has a lot of guards, and a team that plays up tempo and does play very aesthetically pleasing basketball. Let's talk about the TCU Horned Frogs. Mark Campbell's second year, probably the best 1 to 2 years, like not even turnarounds, but like literally the moment he came to Fort Worth,
Hmm.
turned the program around, made them fun to watch. Even when they were going through injury crisis and had to bring in walk-ons, like they were still entertaining. They're 27th in free throw in 3-point rate right now, second in the Big 12 in 3-point rate right now. One of the best shooting teams. Of course, I've gone this long without mentioning Haley Van Lith and Sonora Prince, the best, probably one of the best 1-2 punches in the country. Look, like this is just who they like. This is just a damn good team that's playing a very WNBA modern style of play outside in. Sedona Prince oftentimes is the lone big they play, even when they bring in somebody like Aaliyah Roberson. She's not a traditional big,
Yeah.
and they basically decided to run the whole team around Haley Van Lith, which credit to it, it's worked. She's gone back to Louisville Haley, and she's bringing back her swagger, her dominance, and her confidence on the ball.
Yeah, they have 3 players over like 16 usage percentage, and it's Prince at 25, Van Lith
Mm,
27, Connor 21. Like
yeah.
those are the 3 players that do everything for them. And
Yep.
this is Van Lith's highest assist rate of her career. It's she's has the ball in her hands a ton. They run a lot of ball screens for her. And yeah, this kind of that's what this team is. It's as far as those 3 will take them, and that's for the most part been very, very good this year. We've seen them struggle against the top teams, the South
Mhm.
Carolinas and so forth, but ultimately, and you couldn't ask for anything more from this team
Yeah.
this season. They've been incredible.
Yep. All right, Baylor. A little bit more on Baylor. We mentioned how Nikki Collin came from the WNBA and has that pedigree. They're finally like this year and last year. They've finally been able to flash that outside guard-oriented play, but this year they've added the balance of an Aaron Vonleh on the inside. That has been Baylor's weakness the entire time Nikki Collins been there. Aside from the first year she had Alyssa Smith, has been the inside. I think the other things that have benefited is the emergence, kind of the breakout of Dariana Littlepage Buggs as like
Mhm.
a two-way player, not just a good defender who can kind of do some things on offense. She's actually a very good scoring option for them, top rebounder, best defender. Um, and this is what we saw from her as a freshman a couple of years ago as well. So I think her emergence alongside Aaronette Vonleh's introduction has been the biggest difference for Baylor this year. And I think I'm excited to talk to Nick Collin this offseason because I want to hear her talk about her kind of development because a lot of times, like Sarah Andrews, kind of taking a little bit of a back seat this year, right? A lot of players that we kind of got used to seeing, Jada Walker, a little bit of a back seat this year. It's been the Dariana Littlepage Bug show a lot of the time.
Yeah, Aaronette Vonleh's 24% usage, Little Page Bucks 22.2, and Walker's at 20, Andrews is at
Mhm.
21. So it's a very spread out team, spread out
Yeah.
attack that they have. Shooting the ball very well, 32nd in the country in 3-point percentage, at over 35.5%. So very efficient offense, very fun team to watch. We'll see how they play against TCU on Sunday.
Yep. All right, Cinderella and overlooked story. Cinderella, I mean, I'm not going to be breaking any news here. If they get in the tournament, it's UTSA to me. Like if we're just talking about Cinderella, once they get in the tournament, if
Oh,
they
Cinderella
make
once
it,
they're in the NCAA tournament, yes.
yeah, I'm saying like if they make it through AAC, I'm having UTSA as my Cinderella. If you want to look smart, if you want to pencil in a first round up, again, depending on the seeding, I know women's basketball does not have first round upsets like that, but when they do, all I'm going to say is UTSA has the makings of a team that does that because their best player is a Power Five caliber player in Jordan Jenkins. They've been able to add alongside her players like Sydney Love, Adar Udo. They have depth now, right? I'm I'm very high on this team. I really do think this is a team that can catch a first round team sleeping. They just have to make the tournament, which is not a guarantee in the AC. Of course, North Texas, we'll talk about. We may talk about them in a little bit as well. They're going to be in that same race. But UTSA is my team. If they make the tournament, it's going to be really hard. Like barring them playing a TCU or
Well,
barring them playing like a
I'll,
USC,
I'll
you
say
know.
this. I'll say this. If they can get a 12 seed somehow, you're not
Yeah,
playing a road game at that point, right?
good
And that
point.
would be huge. If you're a 13 seed, you play a 4 seed, you're playing them at the 4 seed. So
Yeah, yeah.
we'll see where the seeding comes out. But I definitely agree. They are in contention for that. I added some in terms of Cinderella stories like that could make it to the tournament, that could win
Mm-hmm.
their bracket. The first being Stephen F. Austin out of the
Mm-hmm.
Southland. Now you could throw Lamar in this as well. We know how good Lamar is, but I think the women's side is actually in a similar side of the men's, whereas like on the men's, it's like who's going to beat McNeese. On the women's in the Southland, it's who's going to beat Southeastern, who is undefeated
Mm-hmm.
at this point still, and looks like they're not going to lose the game and won the conference already. So SFA or Lamar, if either one of y'all makes a run at it, I consider it a Cinderella because I would have them both as pretty big underdogs going against
Yep, yep.
Southeastern. And honestly, there's other good teams in the conference as well. So one of those Southland teams. I have North Texas in here. They are third in the conference right now.
I'll give it to them.
UTSA is again 14-1. They're gonna win the
Mm-hmm.
conference. USF is very good. So North Texas to make it to the tournament is gonna have to beat USF and
Mm-hmm.
UTSA most likely. That's a lot. And then the
Yeah.
last one I have is UT Arlington here, who is in the mix in their conference right now, but I think we've talked about them throughout the year. Really how well they've played and what we like about them. They are up to 14-10 overall, and in the WAC they are 9-4. I think that is probably
Mm.
my Cinderella shout. They have 3 more games left in conference play, and with Avery Brittingham and Coy Love, I think they're a really dangerous team that I could see making a run to the tournament.
Yeah. All right. Overlooked team. Who do you got for that one?
Texas Southern. Texas
Okay.
Southern
Yeah.
women.
Yes, that is a great shout.
Texas Southern women are currently leading their conference at, I believe it's 2 losses right now. And with that being the case, they have shown consistently that they are honestly in position to win this thing. And the last
Mm.
3 games, Alcorn, Jackson, and Prairie View, only Jackson is the real tough one there. If they end it and go 16-2,
Mm.
I mean, this is an outstanding, outstanding run from Texas Southern and Vernette Skeet within the SWAC, who we've talked about, but I want to continue to give them more and more light this year. They're 33rd in the country
Yeah.
offensive rebounding percentage. Their offense has been better than their defense, and I think that they're a really fun team to cover in terms of what they're able to do and potentially win this thing.
Mm. I like that pick. I'm gonna go with a double shout. I'm gonna go with both Tarleton and UT Arlington in the WAC.
Yeah.
Right now, Grand Canyon's running away with the WAC. They're 12-0. But I think we were kind of interested in UT Arlington. We liked a lot of the players, but the fact that they put it together the way they have, I don't think we've talked enough about Tarleton, man. Like Bill Brock, who came in, former longtime Kim Mulkey assistant at Baylor. I don't think he followed them. He didn't follow at LSU, correct? Or did he? Or did
No,
he?
no.
Okay, so I think he was at a JUCO or sorry, he was a JUCO legend. I know that much. He took the Tarleton job, and in 2 years, man, this team is. Let me see, double check on this. They are currently 9-4 in the conference. Like this is a team that should not. I didn't have Tarleton on my radar at all, and they're 20-11 overall. I didn't have Tarleton on my radar at all. I look at a lot of these players, and if you've been to the girls' state tournament in high school, a lot of these players you should be familiar with. And I'm like, oh my god, he's building like a recruiting team, like players who were just good in high school, right?
Yeah.
Like Faith Acker from Winsboro is almost averaging a double double right now. Marcia Willis, who was the MVP for La Vega, right? She might have been a little bit undersized to go the Power Five, so like she goes to Tarleton. Like there's a lot of these players. I'm just like, this is a team I'm gonna have to keep an eye on. Like, and Bill Brock is somebody who, alongside Kim Mulkey, is used to building winners, and so Again, I'm not saying they're going to go and make the tournament or anything, but I think in a couple years we're going to be talking about this Tarleton team as somebody to really watch out for, especially when you consider somebody like ACU not being as good as we thought they'd be. I had ACU probably in the spot that Tarleton and
Right.
UTA are at. So yeah, those are my two overlooked teams, and I'll put that on us. Like our Tarleton for a little bit's overlooked by us because of we didn't expect them to be that good this year.
Yeah, I think that's a great shout. There. All right.
So yep, biggest
Disappointment. I have
this year.
two.
Unfortunately, we have a lot of options for this on the women's side.
I have two.
You have two. I want to nail. I'm going to say one.
Who do you have?
Is a disappointment if I didn't expect much, but I'm still disappointed. It's Tech.
Tech.
It's Texas
Okay, yeah,
Tech.
that's
It's
one
Texas
that I
Tech.
have. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, I don't know where I expected to have high expectations or like what, but I expected to see them building towards something.
Well, we
And they
both
just
had
haven't.
them at 7 and 11 going into the season in
That's
conference play.
crazy because they were 3 and 13.
They're 3 and 13. They've been abysmal.
That's crazy. Yeah, they can't play defense. They're an outside shooting team who really can't shoot from the outside, and their roster construction is just not that good. Like they're playing another year with having to rely like 90% on Jasmine Shavers and Bailey Maupin after they saw last year that wasn't enough to get it done. So yeah, we've talked about Krista Gerlich's tenure there and what we kind of know it's all hinging on. By the way, Elite Chavez one game from state, so we'll be able to see if she makes it tonight.
Go get the scoop. Go get down to San Antonio and she makes it there, and go get the scoop for us. Who's she picking?
What if she wins the title and then commits to Texas, like right there? Just like,
hey, Nick Schaefer went to one of her games,
with Krista Gerlich courtside. She's like commits to Texas right there.
She brings all the coaches out.
Not you.
Like this is Survivor.
Oh,
as a reveal ceremony. Oh gosh. All right, another team. My other team on this list, because I did have Texas Tech as well. Is A&M Corpus Christi.
Yeah.
Shocking the fall off that we've seen. This is a team that beat Texas A&M to start the year, and again, not saying Texas A&M is great, but this is a team that beat Texas A&M the very first game of the year, then beat Texas State the second game of the year, and all signs through the first month of the season was like, okay, this is going to be another very, very, very good Corpus Christi team. They have built themselves up the past 5 years to be consistently a contender in the Southland. They are 5 and 12 now in the Southland.
Yeah.
And it is jarring because the losses haven't just come to Southeastern. They haven't just come to Stephen F. Austin or Lamar, like the really good teams, or even like RGV, who we know is good. Like they have lost to McNeese. They've lost to Incarnate Word twice.
Yeah.
Like they are just losing to everybody. And they still have Southeastern again and Lamar again. So they're going to end the season at the very best 6 and 14. I never in my wildest dreams saw that coming. And Paige Allen and Maria Aguado is still are playing, and they just don't have enough around them this year, it looks like.
Yep, that's a really good shout. All right, let's get to was most exciting player for March.
I mean, I have the obvious one is Haley Van Lith to me. Like, I think people have forgotten how damn good this girl is at basketball.
Yeah,
and I'm very excited. She has turned into a meme from the Caitlin Clark game.
Right.
But this is a bona fide college basketball star. I don't know, like WNBA prospects. I don't think she's like viewed that highly, but I don't care. This is a player that I want to see in March, and I want to see her go very far. And I think that she will. I think she's going to be like back on what everybody expects her to be, like the Louisville Haley Van Lith. So that's the first one. That's the obvious one to me, is to get her out the way.
I like that. No, I do think that a lot of casuals who paid attention to this time last year remember her from last year when Caitlin Clark lit her up. And again, that game wasn't as much on her as it was on, I think, Mulkey at times, right? Like leaving her on that island and just being like, hey, good luck. And it's like, what do you expect? Anyway, I think that's a good shout regardless, because I think you need to remind people that, yes, this is a all conference, potential All American type player at
Mm-hmm.
times. So mine's a little bit obvious, but again, we're talking about casuals here. It's Madison Booker. Like just straight up. Like if you want to talk about a team that's not exciting to watch, but a player who is exciting in everything that she could do. This is a walking triple double of a player. This is a guard who is built like a forward, right? Like this is legitimate. You mentioned it last year. You threw out the Kevin Durant comparison as far as like style of play and how she plays. Yeah, she's not going to go drop 30, but again, it's her build. It's how she, even when she pulls up, like her pull up shot looks like KD, right?
Yes.
It's the length. And it's like you can't guard that. Like she's too big for guards. She's too quick for forwards. There's going to be so many moments. Last year, there were moments as a true freshman when she's just putting herself on the map. And I said last year, there's no reason why she shouldn't be in the same conversation with Juju Watkins, with Hannah Hidalgo, with all these other star freshmen that are incredible. There's no reason she should not be in that same conversation. I still think she often gets left out, even despite the fact that she's on the best team in the country right now. So mine's obvious as well, but mine's Madison Booker because sometimes the obvious thing is the right answer.
Yes. I think those are the best ones
Yeah.
in terms of the most interesting. I think you mentioned it earlier, Jordan Jenkins, assuming UTSA
Mhm.
gets into the tournament.
Yep.
And even if they, they don't, I think watching her in a conference tournament once again this is her final season.
Mhm.
I'm interested to see how that plays out and if she can get a good matchup in the first round of the tournament and go from there. So we'll
Yep.
throw her in there as well.
All righty.
All right.
Cool.
Everyone's
There's
caught
a little
up.
primer. Yeah.
Everyone's good. Everyone knows where we're at. Everyone is ready for conference tournament in a couple weeks, NCAA tournament following that, and now we can just talk ball. Now everybody
Yeah.
can listen to the podcast and understand where we're coming from when we talk about these players now. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. Leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't already. If you're listening on the audio side, leave a 5-star rating and review, and check us out on Zone Star State on wherever you get your podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. We're partnered with, or we're obviously through the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Network, who has kind of enabled all this. And March is our busiest time of the year, obviously.
Yeah.
So we are entering that point now. So for Ishmael Johnson, I'm Matthew Brune. We will talk to y'all later.